The Galactic Council had ruled the stars for 12,000 years. Their empire stretched across 900 worlds, and their fleets numbered in the millions. They had conquered species that breathed fire, races that could survive in the vacuum of space, and civilizations that had mastered antimatter. Nothing had ever truly challenged them. Nothing had ever made them afraid. So when the scout ships returned from the outer rim with reports of a new species calling themselves humans, the council barely paid attention. The reports described a primitive world called Earth, a small blue planet orbiting a yellow star in an unremarkable corner of the galaxy. The humans had only recently discovered faster-than-light travel. Their ships were crude, their technology laughable, and their bodies fragile beyond belief. Ambassador Han of the Dominion read the scout reports and laughed. His blue skin rippled with amusement as he shared the findings with the other council members. "They have no energy shields," he announced. "Their weapons fire small metal projectiles. They call them—" He paused for dramatic effect. "They use magnets to shoot pieces of metal through space." The council chamber erupted in laughter. Energy weapons had been the standard of galactic warfare for 8,000 years. Plasma cannons, particle beams, antimatter torpedoes, these were the weapons of civilized species. The idea that anyone would use simple kinetic projectiles was absurd. It was like bringing a stone axe to fight a laser. "Should we even bother with them?" asked a massive creature whose compound eyes glittered with contempt. "They seem too primitive to be worth our time." "We should subjugate them quickly," Han replied. "Their planet has valuable minerals, and their species would make acceptable laborers. I recommend sending the Third Exploration Fleet to demand their surrender." The vote was unanimous. The Third Exploration Fleet, consisting of 47 warships, departed for Earth the following cycle. Fleet Commander led the mission personally. He was a decorated veteran who had crushed 17 rebellions and conquered 3 civilizations. This would be his easiest victory yet. What the Council did not know, what they had chosen to ignore, was that their scout ships had made a critical error. They had observed human technology from a distance and assumed they understood it. They saw metal projectiles and dismissed them as primitive. They saw ships without energy shields and assumed humans had no defenses. They never stopped to ask why humans had chosen this path. They never wondered what a species born on a heavy-gravity world might be capable of. They never considered that sometimes the simplest solutions were the most devastating. The human government received the Council's transmission demanding surrender. President Helena Vance read the message with a calm expression. She had been preparing for this moment ever since humanity discovered they were not alone in the universe. For 20 years, human scientists and engineers had studied the energy weapons used by galactic species. They had found them impressive, elegant, and completely unsuited for human warfare. Energy weapons required enormous power sources. They moved at the speed of light, but their shields and defenses also operated at. Everything canceled out. Galactic battles were slow, strategic affairs where ships exchanged fire for hours while their shields gradually weakened. Humans took a different approach. They asked a simple question: what happens when you fire a chunk of tungsten at 3% the speed of light? The answer was devastating. Fleet Commander entered the Sol system with confidence. His ships were arranged in a classic conquest formation, designed to intimidate primitive species into immediate surrender. He broadcast the Council's demands on all frequencies, fully expecting the humans to bow before his superior technology. Instead, he received a single response from the human flagship, a vessel called the Jakarta. The message contained only 3 words: "Come and take." Smiled, he had heard defiance before. It always ended the same way. He ordered his fleet to advance. The human fleet emerged from behind the gas giant Jupiter. There were only 12 ships, smaller than anything in its armada. Their hulls were thick and angular, designed without grace or beauty. They looked like floating weapons platforms rather than proper starships. "Begin the attack," commanded. "This will be over in minutes." His ships opened fire with plasma cannons and particle beams. Brilliant streams of energy crossed the void toward the human vessels. The tactical officers waited for the satisfying explosions that always followed such an assault. The energy beams struck the human ships and did almost nothing. Leaned forward in his command chair. "What happened? Report." "Commander, their hulls are. They appear to be made of layered materials designed to absorb and disperse energy." The tactical officer's voice trembled. "Our weapons are barely scratching them." Before could respond, the human ships fired there. The first shot crossed the distance between fleets in less than a second. It was a tungsten rod 2 meters long, accelerated to 9,000 kilometers per second. It struck flagship directly amidships. Energy shields were designed to stop energy. They could absorb plasma, deflect particle beams, and neutralize antimatter. They had never been designed to stop a solid object moving at a significant fraction of light speed. The tungsten rod passed through the shields as if they did not exist. It punched through the hull, through the reactor core, and out the other side. The flagship broke apart in a cascade of explosions. Commander died without understanding what had killed him. The other human ships fired in unison. 46 more rounds screamed across the void. 46 more council ships died in seconds. Some were hit multiple times. Others were struck with such force that they simply ceased to exist, reduced to expanding clouds of debris. Captain Sarah stood on the bridge of the Jakarta and watched the destruction with grim satisfaction. "That's for the colonies they conquered," she said quietly. "That's for all the species they enslaved." The battle lasted exactly 97 seconds. When it ended, not a single council ship remained intact. The third exploration fleet had been completely annihilated. The human fleet had suffered no casualties. News of the disaster reached the Galactic Council 3 days later. At first, they refused to believe it. They demanded confirmation, sent probe after probe, and finally accepted the impossible truth. Their fleet had been destroyed by primitives with magnetic cannons. Han demanded an immediate counterattack. "Send the second battle armada," he roared. "Send 500 ships, burn their world to ash." But others on the council were beginning to understand something terrible. Ambassador studied the battle recordings with growing horror. "Look at the numbers," he said. "Their projectiles carried more kinetic energy than our largest antimatter torpedoes, and they can fire them continuously without recharging." "What are you saying?" another asked. "I am saying that we have made a terrible mistake. We assumed energy weapons were superior because they were more advanced. But the humans, they optimized for destruction, pure, simple destruction." The second battle armada departed anyway. 500 of the Council's finest warships, crewed by veteran warriors, armed with the most powerful weapons in the galaxy. They would not make the same mistakes as the Third Fleet. They would stay at maximum range, coordinate their attacks, and overwhelm human defenses with sheer volume of fire. The human response was not what anyone expected. Instead of waiting behind Jupiter, the human fleet advanced. There were now 24 ships, the original 12 plus reinforcements from Earth's orbital shipyards. They moved toward the Council armada at full speed, their charging for what would become known as the Battle of Titan. Admiral commanded the human forces. She was 63 years old, a veteran of Earth's last great war, and she had spent her entire career preparing for this moment. She knew that humanity's advantage lay in two things: the raw power of their weapons and the willingness to take risks. "All ships accelerate to combat speed," she ordered. "Lock targets and fire at will." They sang their deadly song. Tungsten rounds filled the space between the fleets, each one carrying enough force to destroy a small moon. Council ships exploded in brilliant flashes, their shields useless, their armor meaningless. The Armada tried to return fire, but energy weapons took time to charge, time to aim, time to fire. In that time, human could fire 3 more rounds. The mathematics were brutal and simple. Within the first minute, 70 Council ships had been destroyed. Within 5 minutes, 200 more had joined them. The remainder tried to flee, their commanders finally understanding that they faced not primitives but predators. The human fleet pursued them to the edge of the system. They destroyed every ship that could not escape. When the battle ended, only 93 Council vessels had survived, and most of those were badly damaged. The Galactic Council received the news in stunned silence. In a single day, they had lost nearly 500 ships. Their mighty armada had been torn apart by a species they had dismissed as worthless savages. Emergency sessions were called. Demands for surrender came not from the Council, but from species they had conquered centuries ago. Rebellions erupted on a dozen worlds. The Council's image of invincibility had been shattered, and with it went their control over the galaxy. President Vance broadcast a message to the entire Council. Her voice was calm and cold. "We did not start this war. You came to our home with demands for surrender. You threatened our world and our people. We responded the only way we know how." She paused, letting her words sink in. Let this be a lesson to every species in this galaxy. Humanity does not bow, we do not surrender, we do not submit. If you threaten us, we will destroy you. If you attack us, we will annihilate you. This is not arrogance. This is simple truth. The Council debated for 17 days. Some wanted to continue the war, to throw everything they had at humanity until the humans were crushed. Others pointed out that everything they had would probably not be enough. Humanity was now building new ships at an alarming rate. Their technology was improving daily, and worst of all, other species were beginning to copy them. In the end, the Council chose survival. They sent ambassadors to Earth with offers of peace, trade, and alliance. They agreed to free the species they had enslaved. They accepted humanity's terms for coexistence. Ambassador Han, who had laughed at human technology, was forced to deliver the Council's surrender in person. He stood before President Vance in the same chamber where Earth's governments had once met, and he bowed his head. "We underestimated you," he admitted. "We saw your technology and called it primitive. We saw your bodies and called them weak. We were wrong." President Vance smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "You saw what you wanted to see. You saw prey. That was your mistake." From that day forward, humanity took its place among the stars. They were not the most numerous species, nor the oldest, nor the most cultured, but they were respected, they were feared, and they were never again underestimated. The Galactic Council had learned a lesson that would echo through history. Never ignore the species that turns simple physics into weapons of mass destruction. Never dismiss the civilization that builds guns from magnets and metal. And never, ever threat a world full of predators who have spent their entire existence learning how to kill. Humanity had arrived. The galaxy would never be the same.